Hello guys, and welcome to my review for the Rogue One comic. So I've decided to do comic reviews because why not? So I haven't actually read too many of the Star Wars comics, at least the newer ones, because I've kind of been a little bit behind. I've read the first issue of the Star Wars comic. I'm very far behind on that one. There's like 30 maybe by now. I also haven't read Vader yet. I've just been waiting for them to release like the kind of the volumes of them. I've been meaning to read Dr. Aphra, but I don't know if my local comic shop actually has any copies. I have read the first two issues of the Darth Maul comics, so I'll be reviewing those. And I've read Lando, which is fantastic, and I'll review that as well at some point. But I decided to start with the Rogue One comic. Really nice cover, actually, I have to admit. Really nice artwork of the comic. So I knew they were doing a Rogue One comic, but I wasn't sure what it was. I didn't know if it was an adaptation of just the film, or if it was going to the backstory of the characters more, kind of like maybe kind of Catalyst type of thing. And it is a adaptation of the film. So if you know anything about the novelizations of The Force Awakens and Rogue One, they are very in-depth. They go a lot more in-depth into the characters and go more in-depth into the situations that in the film they kind of gloss over. So I was kind of expecting the comic to do that, and it really didn't, which is a shame. I think the comic book isn't really that great. I think if you've seen Rogue One, you don't really need to read it, because it doesn't really add anything. Like, it doesn't really go in depth. There are a couple more flashbacks with Jyn and Galen, but they don't really add too much. They go, and there's some dialogue between Jyn and her roommate, or her cellmate, which isn't in the film. So, but other than that, it doesn't really go into detail with any of the characters' backstories. There's a couple extra dialogue with Baze and Chirrut, so we've just got to them before Jyn and Cassian see them, or just Jyn meets them. So it ended with that, so it's kind of just roughly the first act of the film that we've seen, and it really doesn't add anything. It's very kind of like a very quick adaptation of the film. It's not as... It might, in some respects, it's not even as in-depth as the film. Like, it kind of glosses over, it's very quickly paced. Yes, it's a very fast pace, it kind of glosses over a lot of stuff. The way it's structured is also a little bit different to the film, where in the film you see all of the stuff with Jyn and Galen when Jyn's a kid, and the only kind of other scene is you see her as a kid on Coruscant. Whereas with this, it shows kind of that scene, but then a couple more flashbacks here and there. And the way it's structured is a little bit odd in some ways, like the way it cuts between the different characters and the flashbacks. In some way, it was a little confusing. It's not too confusing, but I think, as I said, if you've seen Rogue One, it's really not necessary. It doesn't really add anything. And if you haven't seen Rogue One, you could maybe pick it up, and you may find it interesting. I really don't know. So, in terms of the dialogue as well, the dialogue's not the best written dialogue. It's a little bit clunky. I think the artwork is really nice. It's a good adaptation, I guess. I really wanted it to delve a little bit more into the characters and maybe a little bit more into the situations, but it kind of is just a direct adaptation, with a couple of little more added scenes, but really it's very, like, the dialogue is... It kind of jumps a couple of sentences, like, from the film. It's not as in-detailed in terms of the dialogue, so it kind of jumps, moves really quickly. So it's interesting. I think overall it's okay, it's well illustrated, it's mostly well written, and there are some extra scenes, but overall it's just kind of a basic adaptation, really. If I had to rate it, I'd probably give it like a 6. It's not the best, it's readable, it's fine, has a nice cover to it, I guess. The interesting thing, though, is it's really the first act, and so that's interesting to me because I've just looked up, there's 6 issues of this thing. So unless it really slows down its pace, really takes its time, explains a lot more with the characters, goes into the backstory of maybe Chirrut and Baze a lot more, or delves into... it goes into detail with a lot of situations that are glossed over, that would be really great. But from this comic book, the first issue, they didn't seem to do that, but the fact that there's 5 issues is interesting to me, because that would mean that they probably would do that, unless One of the issues is maybe even just an entire flashback of Jin as a kid, and so that could be the only reason. Like, if they really take their time with it, go into detail with the characters' backstories, and kind of go into detail with a lot of stuff that the film's glossed over, because there's another 5 issues of this, and it really surprised me. So I hope that's what the comic does, because so far I'm not impressed. As I said, I'll just kind of go over my main points again. It's well illustrated, it's, mostly the dialogue is fine, and it's a good adaptation. I just wanted it to go a little bit more in depth with the characters' backstories, because it's really kind of not necessary, I think is the thing. It's really just not necessary. But if you just want to, you know, you like the Rogue One story and the characters, and you just want to kind of, you don't really have time to watch the film and you want to read it, you can. If you haven't seen the film, I guess you maybe would enjoy it a lot more than people who have, because people who have seen the film, they're just kind of reading what they already know without any more kind of in-depth stuff. So overall, it's fine. I'm looking forward to the other ones to see what they do with it. The fact, as I said, that there are 5 issues is quite hopeful that they do go a little bit more in depth. But yeah, it was fine. That's kind of my review. It was fine. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my kind of review of this Rogue One comic. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the comic. Really nice cover. I'll give it an extra point, because it's a really nice cover. Also, the covers are weird. They sell kind of variant covers, and one of them is literally, it just has the title Rogue One, and then it's just white, which is, it's not really that nice, unless you want to illustrate your own cover, I guess, but it's just kind of like, okay. But yeah, so I will be doing reviews of the Darth Maul comics and the Lando one, and obviously I'll probably be doing reviews of the other comics once I've actually read them. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Rogue One comic. Do you disagree with me? Do you think it's actually great? I don't know. And I'd just love to hear your opinions on other comics, maybe some recommendations of what ones I should read, what other comics I should read first. Should I read the Star Wars one first or the Vader one? Love to hear your opinions. Anyway, thank you guys again for watching, and may the Force be with you.